If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 365 of Picks and Ponies right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz, on a beautiful Thursday night here in the Chicago area. We are live to talk about a huge Pick 5, all stakes Pick 5 this Saturday at Saratoga. It is Whitney Day, one of the best, if not the best handicap races in the country every year. For older males, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button, the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Smash that like button below the video player. And in the top right-hand corner here on YouTube, hit that notification bell so that you know when new content will arise. We're going to go through the particulars, administrative items throughout the show instead of doing it all at once at the beginning, but I highly recommend everyone check out our fantastic podcast website, hhhracingpodcast.com. We've got information below the video player with our power picks. You can listen to us on all these great audio platforms. Again, we'll go through that as we get into the show, but I want to go ahead and start right away because, wow, do we have a show tonight? We also have a very special guest that has not been with us in a hot minute. We're very excited to have him back, especially as he mentally prepares for his big bowling league tonight. But we've got him before. He's going to throw some strikes at the pins. Hopefully he throws some fantastic picks your way this evening. But first, let's bring on my trusty co-host from the East Coast of Maryland, Mr. Pete Visco. Pete, how are we doing tonight?
What's up, man? It's been a while. How you doing?
It is. It's like, oh, Pete, I haven't been on with Pete for a while. I miss you, man.
It feels long, man. It feels like a long time. I'm doing great. Thank you.
You did a great job last week, as did Kyle and Charlie and all the guys that were not at Saratoga. Did a wonderful job subbing in for us. We appreciate it. Just to let everyone know, we know America is dying for Paul Halloran. He is, I believe, at dinner, and Pete, he said he might be able to chime in at some point tonight, and we got to hear his rant. If you
Plus,
watch
when he's at dinner, he's usually boozy too, so that always makes for even better rants. So
yes.
That's always a plus.
And always a little dodgy Wi-Fi. What live appearance for Paul, wouldn't be the same if it weren't for those things. If you watch Saratoga today, you might have some things to rant about. I know our guest wants to chime in on a few things that happened in Saratoga today. But Pete, Saturday, huge day, Whitney Day. It's always a great sequence. We got major races to talk about, all stakes Pick 5. It's not the late Pick 5. Just to clarify, it starts in race 7. So races 7 through 11 on Saturday is their all stakes mandatory, by the way, mandatory Pick 5. So there will be no 4 out of 5. If someone has 4 out of 5, or a group of people have 4 out of 5, they will split that pool. So there is no carryover in this Pick 5 that we are talking about. Before being our guest, let's quickly see who is in the chat. We got Mark Bogaz is here. Good evening, everyone. Happy August. Spa is heating up. Great weekend of racing. Absolutely, Mark. Appreciate it. We got the wonderful Terry Frank, who I was able to see last week in person at Saratoga. Pete, what's up, Terry? How you doing? Chuck Brower. What's up, Chuck? Giddy up. HHH. Chuck, thanks for joining the show tonight. We got Paul Conlon is here, of course. Nice to meet us all at Saratoga. We appreciate it. Got him an HHH hat. He was all set to go. He's going to wear that proudly in North Dakota. And Felice, who also I saw at Saratoga in person. We missed you, Pete, at the meet and greet and other places, but hopefully you'll have a chance to, meet us in a future trip. All right, let's get started here. We want to bring in a guest who's been with us before, Pete, but it has been a while. Life got in the way, a lot of changes in jobs and other things, but he's back with us tonight. He's one of the best handicappers that I know, especially when it comes to New York racing. He writes for the Saratogian, and he also is, I believe, hold on, I want to make sure I get this right now before I bring it on, the senior editor of Winners and Whiners. Love the title. Let's bring him on right now. Mr. Andrew Champagne. What's up, Andrew?
How's it going, everybody? It's good to be back. Really excited to be here. You notice I got the bowling jersey on already, so fully prepared for my usual Thursday night antics, hijinks, and shenanigans. And speaking of antics, hijinks, and shenanigans, oh boy, were there plenty of those at Saratoga today.
There were. We'll get to that in just a minute and let you talk. For those people that are not familiar with you, Andrew, or see you on X or you're right, just give everyone a little 30-second snapshot of your involvement with horse racing.
30-second snapshot, that's going to be tough. We'll start the clock right now. I do a lot of stuff for the Pink Sheet, which is the Saratogians periodical. You can also find me on my website, andrewchampagne.com. Very fortunate to have been able to do a lot over the past couple of months. In addition to all my Saratoga stuff, if you've watched the North American Hong Kong feed, you have seen my stuff. Fortunate to have had a 31% success rate with a 268 ROI. That's a very tough circuit at which to do that. Also did a whole bunch of cool stuff for the Alameda County Fair in Pleasanton, hoping to do more this fall when they wind up getting their fall meet. Not quite 30 seconds, but I didn't go too far over it.
That was good.
Perhaps you're going to see Corey Sassaman again on the bottom of the screen, Andrew. You'll see comments in our live chat. Looking forward to a great show. Corey will be there on Saturday, so we got to get some picks for Corey tonight, Andrew. Really quick, we do want to, of course, get into the pick five, but you have a quick thought on today. There was a non-inquiry put up, and then there was an inquiry put up and a takedown, both of which are a bit controversial. Just your quick thoughts on both those situations today at Saratoga.
I've been using this quote a lot from the late great basketball coach Jerry Tarkanian about a situation that came up in the 80s and 90s, and that is they're so mad at Kentucky they put Cleveland State on probation. Well, that might have been a version of what happened today at Saratoga. As far as what happened in the seventh race, where a heavy favorite got taken down, look, maybe it was a foul, maybe it wasn't. That's not the bigger issue here. The bigger issue here is if we took racing officials from multiple different jurisdictions and asked them the same question, that being, what is a foul that merits disqualification? We'd get 4 different answers. And in no other sport would that ever fly. Regardless of what you think about this DQ or any other ones, all we're looking for is some consistency. And honestly, can we say there is any?
No, not really. Well, of course, there's different rules in different jurisdictions, which is sort of what you're getting to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Pete, I don't know if you saw the races today.
I didn't. All I did see on Twitter or X, I saw a lot of consternation, but I hadn't had a chance to watch the races yet. I was busy today. But anytime you see those and NYRA sucks and you see the stewards suck and everybody sucks, I know something fun must have happened. So
it was fun for some people. If you had the horse that got put up that was 7-1,
hey,
you thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't think they're complaining, right?
Nope.
Well, I'll put in my 2 cents. First of all, and this happened in the Derby. If there's an issue, the stewards need to put up the inquiry sign to let people know. This was early in the card. I think it was race 3. I don't remember the exact race, Andrew, but the stewards need to put up the sign to let people know they're looking at it. Because even though Andy Serling and everyone on the Fox broadcast said they were looking at it, there's a lot of people that are just looking at the tote. They see nothing flashing, Andrew. And even though it took a while for it to be official, Pete, it was just longer to be official, Pete, and there was clearly an issue, and the stewards never put anything up, and none of the jockeys objected, which also, Andrew, I found a little bit weird, but okay. So that was the problem. I actually have no issue with the DQ earlier, and that actually hurt me because I needed the 3 in the pick 6, Andrew, which I played today. I think Irad clearly came over when he didn't see Pratt to his inside, and I think Pratt had, I don't know, half a third body length already to his inside, and Pratt had to clearly check. Now, if you want to say, well, the 3 was tons the best, how do we know if the 3 was tons the best if the 2 had gotten through on the inside, which was, as you know, Andrew, a complete goal derail today. So anyway, we want to get to the handicapping. No one's going to be happy either way, right, Andrew, with the way it goes. I think in general they do a good job. I think the stewards have taken away some of the hurting that's been going on. But today I think they made, one bad mistake, and some people too.
It was not a good day to be a New York steward. And before we just completely rag on stewards and whatever, that's a thankless job because anything you do is going to tick somebody off in some way, shape, or form. It's just a matter of being consistent. Let us know what to expect so that we have a general idea as to what's going to happen in most situations. Stuff like what happened over the weekend where one horse beat the gate and there was a whole bunch of nonsense, and that race may as well have been run with the Benny Hill song going on in the background. That's a little different. But this is one of those situations where just a little bit of transparency and consistency goes a long way, and that's not something we have right now. That's all I'm saying.
The transparency, too, because it'd be nice to hear constant explanation. And then you can say, oh, well, last week, though, or last year, you said this, or last month, you said this. Why is that one different? But if you don't have that, you don't even know what their thought process is half the time. And that's part of the problem, too. It's like, just tell me what happened. Because especially when you look at it and go, I don't understand why that one's different. You know, everybody says, well, if Irad's involved or if he's not involved, like there's always a case of who the people are. And it's like, well, that shouldn't matter, obviously, but tell us why it was different this time than last time.
Yeah, you're right, Pete. And they need to educate the public, Andrew, because people don't know what a class 2 versus a class 3 and etc. All it takes is a student to come on air and explain. I don't understand why they don't hold their feet to the fire. But anyway, we'll move on. It was an interesting day in New York. Saturday is going to be not only interesting, but a lot of fun. Let's get into it, guys. The late pick 5, the all stakes pick 5. It's actually more of a middle pick 5. It's race 7 to 11. Let me go ahead and bring up the entries here first for race 7, and Andrew and Pete are going to help me guide through this very interesting sequence. The all stakes mandatory pick 5 starts in race 7 and ends in the Whitney race 11. Race 7 is the Saratoga Derby. It's a grade 1, $600,000 on the turf, a mile and 3/16 for the 3-year-old boys. Everyone sees on the screen. It's a field of 8. The morning line favorite is the interloper for Aiden O'Brien, Ryan Moore, Diego Velasquez, Irish bred 2-1. Let me go ahead and put the banners up on the screen. Of course, Pete knows this, and Andrew, you might recall, you'll see our picks scrolling on the bottom of the screen right now. I'm going 5-4-2. Pete is going 2-3-8, and Andrew is going with the favorite 4-6-3. So we're all over the map here, Andrew. Talk about Diego Velasquez, and as you talk about it, it must be mentioned that Ryan Moore, no bueno at Saratoga in his career. Maybe things will change Saturday.
No bueno at Saratoga, but I think this horse is very bueno, to get my Spanglish perfectly down. You take a look at Diego Velasquez and you see a horse that, first of all, fetched a lot of money at auction. Over here on my Briz form, I've got him as a $2.9 million auction purchase, and he's running some very, very big spots over the course of his career. 3 back, you see he ran in a Group 1 at Chantilly. He then ran at Royal Ascot in a Group 2. Last time out, he defeated older horses by 7 lengths in a Group 3 at Leopardstown. That day's runner-up, Tarawa, excuse me. Wow, that's a tongue twister for you right there. I do not envy the announcers that have to announce that one. That's a pretty nice older horse that has danced a lot of dances overseas. I think he comes in, and while this is a grade 1, as opposed to a Group 3 he ran in last time out, guys, I think this is a class drop for him. And I think anything close to the race he ran last time out makes him the one to beat against a bunch of horses that, to be totally honest, I am not all that impressed by. There is a value proposition in here, though, that I do think is a must-use in the all-stakes pick 5. I did it that time, Howard. And that's the 6 Carson's Run. Carson's Run, to me, is an example of one of my favorite handicapping angles, which is the toss 2 play. Horse runs a clunker, goes to the sidelines for a while, and then needs the race when he comes back. Draw a line through the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, since that came before a very long layoff, and draw a line through the Woodhaven, which came right after the very long layoff. And all of a sudden, you have a horse with 3 wins and a second and 4 lifetime starts that's run very, very well here. I do think there's some pace signed on in here. Izzy Dioro's got to go. Cugino is going to go. White Palomino is going to go. I don't think this is going to be a mile and 3/16 race at Saratoga with a first half mile and 51 and change. I think there is going to be some speed signed on in this particular spot. And I think Carson's Run, beneath Dylan Davis, who's riding as well as anybody in that colony right now for the quality of mounts that he's getting, I think Carson's Run may very well be the one they have to hold off in the final strides. And at 8-1 on the morning line, that seems like a little bit of an overlay to me. I think he should be about 9-2, 5-1 in this spot. I'll use Legend of Time third, but I've got to be honest, I'm not overly impressed by that one. He didn't run all that well in the Grade 1 Belmont Derby. He was stalking a very slow pace and just didn't kick on the way I think we were expecting him to. That race 2 back in the Pennine Ridge was an absolute heartbreaker because I needed White Palomino in a bad way that day, and he did all the dirty work up front. Nightmare stuff. If you're playing the pick 5, I would use the 4 and the 6. If you're playing exotics, I'd throw Legend of Time in underneath. I would also potentially throw in, Howard, your top pick, Deterministic. I'm just not sure about the mile and 3/16. I am very intrigued about this horse finally getting on turf, though, like he did last time out in what was a pretty paceless race for the level. And like I said, there's going to be some speed in here.
I think so, and you astutely covered almost every horse. So we can just move on to the next race.
I don't need to say anything.
That's why we got this guy. I'll comment on some of the things you said in a minute. I want Pete to talk first, who has got the number 2, Cagino. Now, West Point Thoroughbreds. And Andrew, as I mentioned on the show a few times, I am a recent new owner of a horse with West Point Thoroughbreds. She's a 2-year-old who has not started yet, but I am a proud official member of West Point. I've met many of the people within the organization. I've always had respect for them, and they had actually 2 in the race today. It didn't quite get the job done when McCulloch won today in the stake race. But anyway, Cagino, Pete, for IRAD, won very well last time. I don't know if this horse will be on the lead. This is a Twirling Candy. You'd figure do the dam side out of a Kitten's Joy mare. Distance won't be a problem, but I would say this is a minor step up in class.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. But again, I agree with Andrew where I don't think this is a world beating type of field. I think it's pretty even, and it's relatively, there's nobody great. There's nobody who scares you a ton. I think a lot of it's going to come down to trip. And with Cagino, I think this horse just might be getting good at the right time. And you mentioned, I think the added distance just based on the breeding is going to be helpful to this horse. He's a horse that doesn't need the lead, got the lead. Well, Pratt when he can, if he can get the lead and get it cleanly, he has no problem going to the lead and taking a horse all the way around. But I don't think this horse needs it. You could see in the past performances there, has passed horses in the lane, not necessarily to win, aside from the maiden breaker, but enough to where I think this horse would be comfortable if White Palomino goes, if Izzy Dioro goes. I think this horse can sit right behind, especially with IRAD. IRAD's comfortable sitting off with a horse. And I love the fact that since that last race, which was the best race of his life, he comes back and has 2 really nice works on the turf. So it looks like he's still holding his form pretty well. You're getting the good connection with IRAD. You're not losing much with Pratt to IRAD, obviously. So I just think this horse looks good. The problem to me is if he does go and there is some pace signed on, I don't want him to get, it's the turf at New York. They're not going to heat it up. But, it still could just be a little troublesome if there's 3 of them vying for the lead early.
Well, Andrew, Pete and Paul make fun of me talking about the W word, which is the weather. We don't know. There's a chance of rain tomorrow. There's a chance of thunderstorms Saturday. I have a feeling it's not going to be as firm as it's been, but unless there's a complete deluge or it's unsafe, they're going to be on the turf. Guys, here's my overall feeling of this race, and I think my picks on the bottom sort of emulate that. I just don't think the 3-year-old American turfers are that good. Now, people would say, well, Howard, wait a minute, you've got an American turfer on top. But Deterministic to me is much more unexposed guys on the turf than your Caginos and your Trickeries and all these horses we've seen. I just don't think they're that good. And so I'm going to go with Deterministic. Now, I do have some Clement love. I know the barn. I know the people involved, Andrew and Pete. And Christoph said that he always wanted to test this horse long on the turf. And that's what he gets. Now, the last time, I'm just going to show the stretch. He did lose to Neat. It just seems like he's a big horse who takes a little time to gather. But once he gathered in this race, he really went on in the stretch. I know he didn't get there, but he's the 6th. He's a big horse. It took him a little time to switch leads, and he lost a little ground. Right here, like you think, oh, he's going to lose by 3 or 4. But you can see he's really lengthening out here with his stride. I think he's going to love the extra distance. And this is sort of my version of your Carson's Run in this race, and you see only loses by half length. But, watch the gallop out, and I've talked about it a lot of times, and usually, it's been good for me. He galloped out very well. I think there's enough speed in this race, guys, and I think the distance is going to suit. I think he's going to make a big run late, and I think I'm going to get a price. So I'm going to go deterministic. I agree with you, though, overall, Andrew. I think Diego Velasquez is the horse to beat. 2 back, he was taken back. And even Ryan Moore said that was a mistake. They tried to rate him. It clearly didn't work. He wants to be more forward. He's a little bit goofy, right? He's quirky. In that last race, he was like, 7 wide, Andrew, if you watch it, and completely away from everyone else. So I don't know what to expect from him. I'm just going to take a shot at deterministic here at a price. Carson's run can make, literally, as the name points out, can make a run late. I'm completely against Legend of Time. I've never liked him. I didn't like him 2 back when he broke our hearts, Andrew. Last time, what was his excuse? None. He didn't have one. He's going to be bet because it's Appleby Buick. Anyway, I'm just going to try deterministic, guys, at a price. Andrew, to me, it feels like it's Diego Velasquez or many others, and my other many others is only deterministic. I'm fine going too deep here, Andrew, in a pick 5, frankly.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree with you too much on that. And what I will say is if deterministic runs the way you think he's going to, Howard, you're not going to get 6-1 on him again anytime soon. So I certainly can't fault you taking a shot there. This is a horse that had enough talent earlier this year to win the Gotham at Aqueduct. They tried the Derby Trail with him. Just turned out he wasn't really a dirt horse. They were waiting for turf. They got turf, and he ran pretty well last time out. I'm not sure the 1 3/16 miles is something we know he's going to handle, but that's why you're getting 6-1.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm not going to take a low price on deterministic, but Pete, it feels like Diego Velasquez is going to be, he could be as low as 8-5, and you're going to get a price on everyone else, including your Cugino, who I say could be, he might be above his 3-1 more line price.
Yeah, I was actually, when I handicapped first, it was pre-morning line. I was surprised Cugino was even that low. I thought would be just a touch higher, nothing too high. But yeah, deterministic. Same with me, Andrew. I thought the 3 best races were all 1 mile and below, and I know 2 were on the dirt and they were against pretty good fields. I just didn't. If you're going to start knocking horses, they all have flaws. Every horse in this race, there's none of them that you're like. I don't think there's a guarantee if you can look at any of them. So aside from White Palomino, actually is one of the more consistent ones, just because that horse just always puts himself in the race, and Pratt's going to put him in the mix. So you're going to get a run. It's just the point of whether he gets a clean run and can do something with it. So that's actually one we didn't talk much about, but I think that's just a horse who's going to be there. You're going to have to beat that horse down the lane.
I got to tell you guys, for a grade 1 that maybe didn't come up looking like a grade 1, it's still a fascinating handicapping race.
Yeah,
it
sure.
really is. It's going to be very interesting. Let's go on to the next race. I know, Andrew, you have a very strong opinion here on this race. You are licking your chops. Let's go to it right now. It's simply one of the best races for fillies in the entire calendar year. It's the Test, and we've seen incredible races every year in the Test. Grade 1, 7 furlongs, restricted for the 3-year-old fillies. It's a small field, but a very elite field this year of 6, with the Moorline favorite number 4, Ways and Means, who absolutely freaked during the Belmont and Saratoga weekend for Chad and Flavian. Andrew, this horse had a very rough trip, I thought, in the Kentucky Oaks, and came back and won big last time. 3-year-old fillies, guys, are a bit fickle. We've said, especially early in the year, they're basically teenage girls, and along with the boys, you're never really necessarily sure what you're going to get. Let's see what Andrew and Pete and myself feel about this race. On the bottom of the screen, Pete and I see it the same way. Interesting, Pete. We are both going to go with Denim and Pearls trying to beat the favorite. And Andrew is definitely like, forget Ways.
I thought I was being contrarian here. My goodness.
No. Well, a little bit. I mean, you've got our third. We're all trying to beat the monster Ways and Means. You're to go with Emery, the other Cox. There's 2 Coxes in the race. This one with Tyler G from the rail, Andrew.
Yeah. So looking at this, you mentioned, Howard, that Ways and Means had a horrible trip in the Kentucky Oaks. I'll grant you that. She has had horrible trips in all 5 of her races. Some horses have bad racing luck, and some horses make their own trouble. Ways and Means hits me as the latter. I am not saying that she cannot win this race. I'm not going to go so far as to say something stupid like Ways and Means is a takeout reducer or anything like that. I'm not going there. But she's going to, I think, need a clean trip against what's a very, very good field for the level. Only 6 horses. All 6 of these horses have some talent. And I went with number 1, Emery on top. This is a horse that ran one bad race in her career, and it was in the Frisette last year over a very sloppy track, going against Just FYI when that one was going very, very well. And just looking at speed figures, one could argue that could potentially have been a bounce off of a very good debut right here at Saratoga. They took their time with her. They brought her back at Keeneland. She looked great that day. She's looked very good in a couple of subsequent starts. She's got some speed, but she doesn't necessarily need the lead in order to run well. I am a sucker for that kind of trip going 7 furlongs. I see the buyer speed figures on the screen there going 82, 86, 90. Further progression, I think, would make her a handful in this spot. You mentioned Brad Cox has 2 in here. He's also got Denim and Pearls. The weather does play a role for me. I don't think Denim and Pearls is quite as good on an off track as she is a fast track. If it's dry, use Denim and Pearls. On the wet track, though, I'm going to try to beat her. The value play in here for me, though, is all the way on the outside with horse number 6, Bright Work. This is a horse that I liked a lot last year in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. I thought that the Alcibiades was a throwout. Well, just turns out that this one isn't a 2-turn horse. They took their time with her, bringing her back. She has a couple of very, very good workouts here at Saratoga that jump off the page. And last year here at Saratoga, she got pretty good. How's a win in the Grade 1 spin away over Ways and Means sound? And look, Ways and Means had a terrible trip that day. Bright Work didn't have it easy either. If Bright Work is ready, she's got a big shot in here. I see 6-1. I think she may very well be the 5th choice in a field of 6. And I think she's live beneath Johnny Velasquez, who doesn't ride for this barn all that much. I'm going 1-6 in the pick 5, and I'm trying to beat Ways and Means. If Ways and Means gets a clean trip, maybe she wins. But that's not a small if given her past performances. And do you really want to take close to even money on that? I don't.
I think it's fascinating. We've got someone special waiting in the background. I want to bring him on because he's only going to be on for a minute or two. Our wonderful co-host live from Saratoga Springs. I'm assuming a restaurant with Pete, of course. I'm sure a beverage just on or off camera. Let's bring him on right now, Mr. Paul Halloran. Paul, how you doing today?
I am actually at a wonderful gathering of some of my Suffolk Downs friends hosting us for a barbecue. We alternate every year, as you know, Howard and Pete. We hosted last year. It was a wonderful affair.
Yes.
Special guest Cody. And they're hosting this year. And so here I am. And we are ready to go.
Paul, I know you only have a few minutes. Say hi to Andrew Champagne, by the way,
Andrew,
who's with us. Paul,
Andrew,
of course, you know, writes for the Saratoga Special, Andrews, you may know. Go ahead, Paul.
Jeez, Pete, I come on for 3 minutes and he won't let me talk.
He won't let you talk. I mean, come on, man. Yeah,
Jesus
let's go.
Christ. I was going to say, Andrew, I could not agree with you more about Bright Work, by the way. So I don't know how that makes you feel, but
makes me feel pretty good. At a minimum, I've got some company.
And not only that, and I don't know if I just got on when you started talking about him. I mean, the horse has proven to love the surface, which is just an even bonus. And yeah, we get it. Ways and Means could be Tower Ovaries. She may be meant for this 7 furlong trip. We get it. But I think price-wise, I'm with Andrew all the way there on Bright Work.
May I talk?
Yes. Howard, Mr. Kravitz.
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Paul, real quick, thoughts on the Whitney, and then we'll let you have your quick rant and let you get back to dinner.
Yeah, I think that I've really become a National Treasure convert, and he really sold me in, battling Cody's Wish down the lane at Santa Anita. I think 9-5 in that 11 horse field is difficult to take. I really want to land on Arthur's Ride. It is Pete, I want to be. It's just the 11. I will tell you, I had a conversation with my good friend Junior Alvarado sitting in an Adirondack chair outside Bill Mott's barn yesterday morning, and he basically told me that if he had a better post, he would be really, really confident in this horse. Now,
Tell him he's going to win anyway. He's going to win anyway, Paul. Don't worry about it.
The thing about him, Pete, is that horse could be anything. There's a chance he's not good enough, but there's a chance that he's anything. So that's the way I'm going to go about it. I think National Treasure is the most likely winner. I think the value is going to be really non-existent, and I'll have some tickets with Arthur's ride on it. In case, I mean, really, what it boils down to, right, is Junior's got to be able to get over and chase National Treasure's going from inside. We know that, right? So Junior's got to be able to work out a trip from up there, and if he does, and the horse is really good, you may get a decent number.
Well, we'll talk more in detail about the Whitney in a little bit here, Paul. But I know you have a quick rant that you want to say, and Andrew, we do have a we start this. This is new since you've been on the show. Let me go ahead and put up. I do have a banner where I got to find it. I always like to find this banner. I know there it is. It is time for very quickly Paul's rant of the week.
So
we let Paul. We let Paul have the whole screen. Go ahead, Paul.
That I thought of you because it's about this pissing contest. NYRA had the thing with FanDuel, and they got over that, and now they're in this pissing contest with Churchill over Twin Spires, and you can't get the content. And I saw a quote from the president of Churchill Downs, Howard, that said NYRA is being, quote, reckless. And I immediately said to my good friends and housemates, I wonder how my good friends in Chicago who lost Arlington Park feel about the executioner of Arlington Park saying that another organization is, quote, reckless. So regardless of where you fall on this current dispute, and I don't have all the numbers, the irony of the president of Churchill Downs calling anyone reckless with his track record, pun intended, is just too priceless for me to leave without commenting on. That's all.
Well, Paul's well said. Look, we could. That's a whole other show. I thought it was all over until I read this morning that or yesterday morning that they're having disputes again. But anyway, Paul, we appreciate you coming on. We wish you good luck. Hope you're having a wonderful time at Saratoga Springs. It was great to see you last weekend, Paul, and we'll see you on air next week here on the show.
Tomorrow's Saratoga special, Howard. I have the Joel Rosario life story on his Hall of Fame induction day. This is horseracing.com. Spent a lot of time on it, and I hope people enjoy it.
Paul, say hi to Joe, Sean, and Tom for me, will you?
Andrew, I will do that in the morning. I'll see them out in the backstretch in the morning.
Sounds good.
All right, Paul, thanks for joining us. Take care, buddy.
See you, Paul.
All right. Paul does a great job with the Saratoga special and many different things, and he's just a great co-host here on the show. Pete, let's quickly talk about Diamond Pearls. I think Andrew brings up a good point with this horse. If it's sloppy, that might be a problem. But, boy, his dry races are really good, Pete, and I just think he's going to sit a great trip. He's working well. We're going to get a little bit of a price. I'm taking a shot here as well. Are you IRAD in a grade 1, not favored? Give me some.
By the way, take a sip for saying he about 4 times in that little
soliloquy
there. So, yeah.
I did?
Yep. Yes, you did.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, that is bad.
You let one go, but you said it about 4 times, right?
No, you're right, Andrew. If you got a beverage nearby,
that's our rule.
You know when we misgender on this show, it happens. Hey, Pete, quickly
we're not the
Pearls.
Olympics. We don't get into that stuff here. So I agree though, and then people have commenting in the chat too. If it comes up sloppy, then I'm mostly tossing Diamond Pearls, but my handicapping was fast. This is a horse I just really like, and it may be just sort of a heart play too. I think the talent is there. I think the 7 furlongs fits, as you could see that the 2-turn route was one that she didn't win as a pretty big favorite, and then she just didn't seem to handle the track at all in the last one. I can't imagine she's that bad because that's never shown up before. So I just have to figure there's going to be a bounce back if we get a fast track. And again, similar to Cugino, those last 2 works just show she's back and she's ready to roll. Just the point of whether she gets the track to do it.
I agree. I'm going to try to be ways and means also, but I am going to use her, Andrew. I mean, I don't want this horse to knock me out of a pick 5, but I'm just going to try to beat her. So we'll see what happens. Let's go on to the next race, guys, on the screen. I'm going to scroll down. We've got 2 races on the turf. Again, I'm more races on the turf. We're assuming it's going to stay on. This is the Fasig-Tipton Lure Stakes. Really competitive field, 135,000, mile 16th around the inner here. The rail is out just a bit. Big Moorline favorite, or I shouldn't say big, but at least a very, very nice Moorline favorite. Number 9, More Than Looks, at the bottom of the screen for Cherie DeVoe and IRAD, 2-1. Let me switch the banners here. I'm going with her 9-5, or him 9-5-4. What is my problem tonight? Pete's going 4-9-8. Andrew's going 8-9-4. So we are a bit similar. Pete, I'm gonna have you go first with Irish Aces. This is a horse I talked about last time because I met one of the co-owners at the Hawthorne Invite and I had some intel, and I was completely against this horse last time. I sort of agree with you. I like him more today. I've got him 3rd. Andrew's got him 3rd. You've got him on top.
Yeah, this one, I hate when you go to me, and I'm going to lead with, this was a complete spread race for me where I didn't have a strong opinion, and I sort of had to pick a horse on top. So I love leading with that one. But yeah, we did talk about this horse because I think I liked him a little bit more than you did last time. And I'm not sure which one of us was completely right, because ran a good race, but was just way too far back and had way too much to do and just couldn't get there. But I just feel like this one's going the right way. I think we're getting a little bit better. The last 2 from a buyer standpoint were solid. From a time form standpoint, I think as long as we can get a little bit of pace, and the hope would be, and this is probably a little false hope, is that let's not get too far back. Let's just keep a little bit of striking distance. Let's not leave so much to do in the lane that we're just closing for a piece again, which unfortunately this horse tends to do. And again, I don't think there's going to, yeah, go ahead, please.
Well, there's the time form. I like this horse. I'm not sure this is going to be the spot based on the pace projector.
Well, the one thing at least I like is there's multiple horses who look like they need the lead if they want to win the race. And I think the 3 and the 5 are the 2 that do it. And Johnny's Fireball is one that usually will sit close. But I do think the 5 Big Everest and the 3 Swiftsure, I don't think they have another method really to win. Swiftsure looks like the best way he's going to win, and he's a 20-1, so I'm not sure he's got that much of a shot anyway. But
is he entered only for dirt, you think, Andrew? I know he's not an MTO, but I'm wondering if the connections are hoping to get in this race with the possible surface switch. It's just
really interesting because this horse has never tried turf before. You see Uncle Mo out of a Speightstown mare, maybe, but yeah, I do think they are entering in case of a monsoon. They may very well run just in case, because just going off the class level, it's not like an ungraded stakes is totally out of this horse's element, but I do think they are hoping it comes off.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Pete.
Yeah.
I just think that
I agree with
that's
that.
a big factor in
that's
this race,
a change.
right?
Yeah, that would because I think then you probably move Big Everest up in that in that respect for sure. Who's a horse that Andrew and I don't have in our top 3, but I assume you have to move up a bit if he's the lone speed.
I've got the horse in second only because I have a bizarre feeling the 3 is going to scratch. And I think the 5 could just sit a little bit off if necessary. It's going to be interesting to see. Andrew, you're going with the 8 horse Smokin' Tea. I have a weird relationship with this horse. It's just, he does well when I don't bet him. He doesn't do well when I do bet him. He's a nice horse. He's consistent. He doesn't wow you. This is a little bit of a drop down in class, and Johnny V certainly knows how to get a horse home on the inner turf.
So I've got a weird relationship with Smokin' Tea too, because March 30th, 2024 at Gulfstream, I hit that late pick 4 on Florida Derby Day, and it was a nice late pick 4, but I also had the runner-up in the Appleton who was 20-1.
Oh, wow.
If that photo goes the other way, that's a month-making score for me. But one of the reasons I like Smokin' Tea is one of the points that's been made on some of the NYRA shows that you can watch on the Fox Sports networks, on YouTube, what have you. Some horses just don't like Churchill Downs as turf course. And when they go elsewhere, they seem to move way up. We know Smokin' Tea likes Saratoga. He won this very race here last year. And you guys talked about the pace a little bit. I think there's other speed in the race besides Swiftsure and Big Everest. Yes, those 2 are going to go early, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see some speed from Kubrick on the rail. Forever Super went wire to wire last time out, and that was this horse's best effort in quite a while. I don't think Johnny's Fireball is going to be far off of it. I wouldn't be surprised if they send Pioneering Spirit out of the 7-hole. There's some speed in here. I don't think you're going to see a complete meltdown, but I do think you're going to see a somewhat solid pace that sets things up for a couple of the closers in here. And of the closers, I think Smokin' Tea has the most potential to run the type of race that could potentially win this. This is a horse that won a Grade 3 last year, as mentioned, won this race here last year, and has some excuses for the last two if you just assume he doesn't like Churchill Downs. More Than Looks makes a lot of sense. I picked this one second solely because of the layoff, but he's been training very, very well. And the faster they go early on, the better this horse's chances figure to be. You guys talked about Irish Aces a little bit already. I had to rewatch that last race because I needed Tidal Forces that day at 30-1. And that is the one of many horses that I've needed at a big, big price at Saratoga this summer so far. That's run really well, run his eyeballs out, and finished second. That's been the story of my meet. And by the way, earlier today at Saratoga, I lost both of the photos and I got taken down in the DQ. So I'm inventing new, innovative, exciting ways in which to run second.
So basically, just play all your horses, just wheel them all for second tonight.
Pretty much,
and
yeah.
You're good. Everybody's good in the chat. You don't need anything else.
I had Kid Creasa at 31-1 last week too. That was freaking painful. But going back to the lure, I just simply think that this race, I don't want to say it's going to fall apart, but I do think there's going to be some speed that some quality closers could potentially close into. Yeah. I am 8, 9, and 4 in here, and that's where I'll wind up with, because I do think there's some speed. I do respect More Than Looks, but the layoff is a little bit of a concern, as is the far outside post on the inner turf. That's not nothing.
No doubt. I've got the 8 as a B in my ABC. I think that horse can win. I will say this, Andrew, when I was at Saratoga last year for about 10 days, of all the horses I saw More Than Looks in the paddock. That's when it was the August 11th race. It says good, but there was a lot of rain before the race. And I want to get in details. You might remember.
There was rain at Saratoga last summer. I'm shocked, Howard.
This was the best looking horse, pun intended, I saw all meet. And in fact, this is one of the nicest horses I've seen just on looks in the last 10 years, I'd say, in person. This is a beautiful horse, and DeVoe's done a great job. I agree with you. I'm concerned about the outside post. I haven't heard the reasons why the horse has the layoff. I got to do a little more research. But if this horse can run back anywhere to where he did at the end of last year, he wins this race. This is a super talented horse that, guys, I think if he can develop this year, has an outside shot along with, I'm drawing a blank, the nice horse from the West Coast that just won.
Johannes.
Johannes, to be a factor in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I'm not saying he's going to win it, because Euro is going to win that. But to me, More Than Looks and Johannes are probably the two best milers in the country. And I'm just fascinated to see what More Than Looks can do. But I would never put a win bet on this horse anything lower than 5-2, and he's going to be lower than that. But I got to use him as an A on Saturday. Guys, let's go to the penultimate race of the pick 5 right now as I put on the screen. It is the Troy Stakes. And guys, I don't think we have to talk too long about this race. It's a Grade 2, $300,000, sprinting 5.5 on the turf. And there is a complete superstar. And maybe it's because it's, turf sprinters. This horse maybe hasn't gotten his national recognition. I know, Pete, you mentioned that on an X post about the NYRA, top 10, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else you need to do to break into the top 10 when you run a, the fastest 5.5 furlong turf race in history, basically, and have been dominant and have just been awesome since forever. I don't know what else you have to do, but I don't think anybody takes all that top 10 into account, even though I think it would be fun if people did a little bit more.
Cogburn is who you're talking about, 4-5. Asmussen. We seem to be talking about IRAD a lot in this show. I wonder what kind of day he's going to have Saturday. Did anyone get a little bit cheeky and go against Cogburn in this race? Nah, come on, we're not stupid. I'm going 6-8-1. Pete's going 6-1-8. Andrew's going 6-8-10. Andrew Cogburn, his sort of come up party was on Derby weekend when I was there, and we actually got a little bit of a price. I don't care if it's firm, soft. He's got a great post. He's extremely fast. I just don't need, I see no reason logically why he'd lose this race unless he doesn't break.
Yeah, I can't go against Cogburn here. I tried that in the Jaipur. I was not sold based off of the race he ran at Churchill, and I fell flat on my face. Cogburn made me look like an absolute moron. I'm not going there again. There are no other world beaters in this field, though there are some nice horses. I simply think Cogburn is the class of this field. He doesn't even need to repeat his Jaipur race. I think 85% of that race, he still winds up winning this one. The two horses that I'm going to spotlight underneath, though, both ran in one of the races on the Preakness undercard, that turf sprint that was listed as soft, but the more accurate description of that course should have been do not run on it. That's number 8, Grooms All Business, and number 10, Whitty. They ran 1-2 in that spot. Whitty in particular is an ultra consistent horse that I think is going to be a price. And if you want to try to extract some value from Cogburn, perhaps some cold 6'10" exactas are the way to go. This horse is going to be running well late, was a good second last time out in the Highlander up at Woodbine when he didn't have much of a pace to chase and was probably up a little closer than I think he wanted to be.
Oh, a little Los Angeles, a little bit.
Froze and he not so.
Andrew, if you can hear us, you froze up a little bit. I'm gonna leave him on this. Well, I'm leaving him on the screen for about 15 more seconds. See what happens. Pete, I don't have too much to add here. I thought Grooms All Business is getting better and is tactical enough to maybe clunk up for second. And we both have the rail horse who has just been too far back, Mischief Magic. And I don't know if I love the rail, but I have a feeling the way Buick's been riding, he might try to hustle this one a little bit early. And he's probably the best closing kick in this race. He just has had too much to do recently.
Yeah, I agree. And to go to, well, we'll stick with the one for a second because that's who you have on the screen. Yeah. It's hard to pass up a horse when you have Buick and Appleby, of course, even though last time was just, again, this is a horse that just breaks terrible, has zero early speed. You're going to need a little bit more of that. But again, and I don't know, 6-1, what do you think? 6-1 seems a little high for an Appleby Buick horse. Even in a pretty big field like this, it just seems a little high. But if you get that and the exacta's paying, you know this horse is coming late. It's just a point of whether he can get to Cogburn. And I really like Grooms All Business. I think that's the one I would play probably a cold exacta if I was going to do it that way. Because I just think that's a horse who came back at 5 and in 2 races at 5 has just run basically the 2 best races of his life. And now he picks up Dylan Davis, who's been riding pretty well this meet. And I think this is a horse that's at least on the come up a little bit. So 6 for 10 at the 5.5. So I think that's one that if you can get a price and if that horse floats up a little bit, I'd love to have that one cold. I think this is one where you watch the exacta board maybe, right? Because I think agree. Second is wide open.
Yeah. Andrew, we do not see you. Can you hear us? Andrew, are you there? Okay. He's supposedly there, but we don't see the video. So I'll take him off until he figures that out. There's not much to add. I think we should go right on to the big one here for the next 10 minutes before we Andrew has to. Well, I would say before he has to leave, but he unintentionally has left us for now. Hopefully, we'll get Andrew back on for the Whitney, but we do have his picks, of course. Let me see. There's something in the private chat here. Let me. No, okay. So we'll try to get Andrew back. That's something on his end, I believe. Let me take the banners off the screen as I scramble to get ourselves reorganized here. And let's go to the big one, Pete. The Whitney. We already heard from Paul Halloran about his opinion. This is a really nice field. It's simply the best handicap race in the country every year. That's 2 turns. I mean, you got the Met Mile, of course, but this is $1 million. A mile and 1/8, of course, for 4-year-old and up. It is a big field of 12 this year. The morning line favorite is, of course, National Treasure, the best handicap horse in the country right now for Baffert and Flavian, sitting a very nice post here from the 3-hole 9-5 morning line. Here's our picks on the screen. I'm going 3-2-9. Pete, you are going with Arthur's Ride and then 3-9. And Andrew's going 9-3-5. So we got a lot of National Treasures and bright futures. Let's talk about Arthur's Ride. This is your top choice, Pete. Major class test, tough post, but his talent is undeniable, and he has just run huge. Whoa! Now I got to reload that too.
Everybody's,
okay.
everybody's.
Yeah, we're all having issues. He's run some big races, Pete. let me just put us on. Let's just do this. He's run some big races. The question is, can he get over from the outside, and can he rate off of National Treasure if necessary?
Yeah, because I was looking more, I think National Treasure is a pretty obvious use and looks like the best horse in the race and should get the trip. But I figure if I have a couple of A's, I'm going to take the shot with the longer price. And I did have Arthur's Ride on sort of my A line, and I just think talent wise, I think Paul said it best. Talent wise, and I think the distance, I think to tap it out of a point given mare, I think distance wise, it's going to fit this horse. He looked really strong down the lane. He didn't beat much, but again, we always say if you're not going to beat much, then beat them to hell. And he did that last time, and he looked really strong coming down the lane. And I figure if he can get over, if Junior does what he says, and if he can work out a decent trip. Again, we haven't necessarily seen this horse sit off much. We did in the second race of his life, but he didn't win. But I figure if he's just sitting off, it's not that different than maybe getting to the top. Or maybe for some reason he clears National Treasure and then let National Treasure have to come and get him. We'll see.
What would you like? Can. I mean, you obviously want Junior to get the lead here, but do you want him to be just like hell-bent to get the lead? Or
no,
if National Treasure breaks well, do you want Junior just to sit off and maybe take his chances? I mean, what's the strategy for Martin Junior here?
I think you almost have to sit off in that case, because especially it's hard when you're a horse that's making a class jump to then, hey, there's Andrew back.
We're going to try this. This is my phone. It looks a little off center. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you beautifully.
You're all good. Good.
I mean, you're always so quiet and shy. It's hard to, you don't come through as well, but So we were actually talking, Andrew, before you jumped on, we were talking about, and I like Arthur's Ride, and we were talking about what kind of trip would he need to get. And my thought is, if you're a horse that's moving up in class like he is, and you're facing by far the toughest field, the one thing you don't want to do is get into a speed duel with the best horse in the race. So I figure Junior's going to either clear cleanly without overexerting Arthur's Ride, or try and sit off and see if he can run that way. But I think from a distance standpoint, it's going to work for him. So I think he's going to have kick down the lane. It's just a point of whether he can work out a half decent enough trip to use it.
I don't know if you guys heard, but supposedly Il Miracolo, the number 6, is going to be scratching Saturday. Now, if that is true, I will move up Arthur's Ride quite a bit. I don't like the 6 to win, but I think the 6 will show a bunch of speed and might make Arthur's Ride situation a lot more difficult. Pete, in my opinion, and I like the horse a lot. I had Arthur's Ride last time at a ridiculous price. I couldn't believe I was getting that price.
Yeah.
It just seems like he needs the lead to win. And if I'm Mon Alvarado, I'm just sending like a banshee and taking my chances. I see no way, shape, or form this horse can sit off of National Treasure, go by and hold off others. Maybe I'm wrong, Andrew. I just think this horse has to have the lead. And if that is true, we could see a pretty hot pace along with Skippylongstocking in this race. And you're hoping that way, Andrew, because you're going with Closer and Bright Future.
I am anticipating a pace duel, not necessarily a meltdown, but I do think it's going to be hot. We just haven't seen Arthur's Ride do anything but win on the lead. And
I agree.
Mind you, if he winds up getting quarter horsed out of the gate and winds up getting comfortable up front, we may very well have an Arrogate and the Travers situation on our hands where he forgets to stop. The problem is National Treasure's pretty fast. First Mission is pretty fast. Tumbarumba's not slow.
Hey, First Mission's going back. That's what Cox said today, right?
Yes. He said they're going to try and take back and make a run, which I agree with that, by the way. But
we'll see if that winds up being the plan. But Tumbarumba's not slow, and Skippylongstocking's not slow.
Agreed.
So it's not necessarily that I think Arthur's Ride isn't going to get the distance or isn't going to be talented enough to take on a field like this. I just don't like the race shape for him. I would like him a lot more in a race that I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up in after this, the 1.25 mile Jockey Club Gold Cup, where a lot of these horses are probably going to wind up being on the shelf. To me, that's the race Arthur's Ride is absolutely born and bred for. But in this particular spot, I'll go with Bright Future. All he's done at Saratoga is go 2 for 2. Last time out off of a very long layoff, he looked completely lethargic in the Salvatore Mile at Monmouth. Down the backstretch, It looks as though he has absolutely no interest in running in this particular race. And we're wondering, oh my goodness, why is this horse even money? How is this horse the same horse that wound up winning the Jockey Club Gold Cup last year over a pretty decent group?
He's
And
going
then you
backwards,
look
here, Andrew, right? He's going
yes.
backwards.
He's going backwards. It's the planes, trains, and automobiles moment. You're going the wrong way. But all of a sudden, here comes Bright Future making this bonkers move. And all of a sudden, oh, that's the classy horse. It just seemed like he remembered how to run. If that race doesn't scream he needed one off the layoff, I don't know what does. And I do think there's going to be plenty of pace signed on. I do think Bright Future has enough tactical speed to not be completely out of it in the early stages. And I think Bright Future is the one that, when the National Treasures in this race have shaken off some of the early opposition turning for home, that's the fresh horse they got to deal with. 5-1 to me is a very fair price. And I hope we get it come post time because, look, we know he loves Saratoga. We know he loves the kind of trip that he's likely to get. He's won 3 of his last 4 starts, and the only time he didn't win, he wound up running less than 4 lengths behind White Abario in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think I can forgive that one, guys. So for me, it's Bright Future. I respect National Treasure. I think National Treasure is probably the best older dirt horse that we have in the country right now, just going off the resume that he's got. He ran huge from last year's Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. I may have been one of the only people that was, thinking, this disqualification, if it happens, might actually be okay for me, because I had a couple of live bets linking National Treasure and Inspiral that would have paid a fair bit. I'm happy that didn't wind up happening, just a lot better for the story that way. But I do think National Treasure, as good as he is, maybe better going the mile, even if it's a 2-turn mile or a mile out of the Wilson chute. He can go a mile and an eighth, but he's going to wind up with some opposition up front. And if he's going to wind up winning this race, I think he's got to be, by leaps and bounds, the best horse in this field. He might be. I'm using him, but I don't know if that's enough to make me want 8-5, 9-5 on this horse. It's a slight underlay for me. Behind that one, I'm using First Mission in third. I'm just drawing a line through the Stephen Foster. Going down the backstretch, it looked like a perfect trip for him. It's not like he ran all that fast early on, and then a couple horses came calling, and he just sort of plotted. And that's, I don't think, the real First Mission. If the real First Mission shows up, he's got a shot in a tremendous renewal of the Whitney.
Really good race. And you know what, Andrew, I know you got to leave in 2 minutes. So here's what we're going to do. Pete and I will finish our Whitney conversation after you leave. Let me put up your best plays of the pick 5 and let you get on to crushing it in your bowling league. You basically have 2 thoughts here. Let me take off this banner. Let's go full screen. You basically have 2 thoughts in this pick 5. You're against Ways and Means in race 8, which is the 4, and you like Bright Future, as you just mentioned, in the Whitney. Any other thoughts for our viewers and listeners as you leave the show?
Just that it's a very good all-stakes pick 5 sequence. I mean, there's a couple of races in there that are grade 1 races in all caps. The Test is a fantastic race. After last year, we need the Test to be a fantastic race. It is. And from a betting standpoint, I'm against Ways and Means. She's going to take a whole bunch of money. It will not be mine. If she wins, I will tip my cap, but I just can't swallow her at that likely short price. Give me Emery, give me Bright Work. I'm against Ways and Means. And in the main event, the Whitney, I'm hoping Bright Future gets that ideal stalking trip, second off a very long layoff. For a guy that's won the Whitney a fair amount of times, and trainer Todd Pletcher, Bright Future loves this track. I respect National Treasure. If National Treasure wins, I'll likely be cashing a couple of multi-race exotics tickets. But at his likely price, Bright Future hits me as a little bit of an overlay. That, to me, is a value play in this sequence, and it's a really good one. There are some days where it's a little hard to get worked up over a Saturday program sometimes, even at big tracks. This is a legitimate program, and some of the horses you're going to see this Saturday are ones you're going to see in some big, big spots down the road.
It is, and all the turf races in the sequence we just talked about are part of a cool 2-day all-stakes 50-cent pick 5 that starts tomorrow, Friday. So that's another thing to be interested about. Andrew, we really appreciate you coming on. We miss you, buddy. We're so happy you could join us. We got to get you back on sooner after this. good luck this weekend, my friend, and throw some strikes and make sure you cover that 10-pin when necessary if you happen to leave it on the first ball.
I appreciate that, guys. It's always a blast. I really, really appreciate being able to spend some time. Let's do this again.
Awesome.
You,
Thanks, Andrew. Take care. Have a good night. Bye-bye. All right, that's Andrew Champagne. I love his personality. I just love everything about him. He does a great job, Pete. Let me go back to National Treasure first. I don't know how you feel, Pete. This is the most accomplished horse in the country of the handicap division. For me, this race will tell me whether I'm using him in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And let me explain, because I think he will take some pace pressure, Pete. And I agree with Andrew. I'm not sure distance is his friend. I mean, when he won the Pegasus, Gulfstream's pretty speed favoring, right? And he was pretty much all out to beat Senior Buscador in the field that I thought was very meh for the level, to be honest. And then the Met Mile, he ran well, but I mean, who didn't show up? White Bar didn't show up. No. Blazing Sevens didn't show up. I don't know. I know he ran a huge fig, but in a weird way, I still feel like he has something to prove to me, Pete, at this distance. So I think he's the horse to beat for sure. I think year 11 is interesting, but I'm going to go with, sorry, drew a blank. I'm going to go with National Treasure anyway. Let me go ahead and bring up the banner one more time for this race. Where is it? Right there. I agree that I do like the 9 Bright Future quite a bit. I just want to mention a little bit of a wacko. If you recall, or maybe you don't, I liked Disarm the Stephen Foster last time, Pete, on this show. I obviously was wrong. However, if you watch that trip and that race, he did not break well. He was like rank in between. Just the race flow and the trip did not work for him at all. Pete, this horse is too good for me to completely discount him in here. And my feeling, Pete, is if he breaks well, he's going to be in the mix. And it just feels like Asterson wouldn't send him here, Pete, if you didn't think he was that good anymore. There's plenty of races he could send him to, right? I mean, he doesn't have to throw him to the wolves, but he decides to stick with him. And you're going to get, I mean, dare I say 20-1 in this race, maybe? I mean, he's going to be a big price. I realize he's not done nearly as well so far this year, but he's going to be a big price. He's going to get an inside trip. He's going to be closing or mid-pack into a fast pace. And there's a lot. I'm against First Mission on Saturday in this situation. I've never loved Skippy. Arthur's Ride, I would love, Pete, if the post positions were reversed. I love your horse. I just don't like the spot and the wide post. I mean, who else is in here? So I think Disarm could run a big race, maybe only underneath, but I would pretty much just go with 3-9 and maybe the 2 a little bit. And I'm against First Mission, Arthur's Ride. In saying that, I think both those horses I just mentioned at the end could win. It just feels like a lot of things have to go their way more than Bright Future and National Treasure. That's my overall thought.
No, I think so. Yeah, Disarm for me it's just tough to play a horse who's run relative. I mean, even the 1-2 back was just a crawling pace up front, beating a field that he was, and just from a figure standpoint, which again, it's not like speed figures are the be all tell all be all, but you like to see progression from 3 to 4, or at least a level, and you just haven't yet. And this is a tough field to do that against. So that was my concern. And Joel isn't the type who, Joel can sometimes get his horse a little too far back, a little bit of trouble in a field like this. When you have a horse that hasn't been running that great, it's a concern for me. So again, if I was going to go with a price, but
Michael's like, nah, Howard, you're crazy. Look, I've thrown enough wacko horses on the show before, Pete, and sometimes they work out. This is sort of the make or break for me with Disarm. If he runs a good 4th, I'll feel vindicated. I'm not saying he's going to.
Well, he likes it off track. He's run some pretty good races.
He loves Saratoga
off track.
too. Yeah, these gun runners like Saratoga. So I just feel like if there's a price underneath to have, it's this one. Now, if Disarm doesn't run at all, Pete, this time, I'll say again, I was completely wrong. I'm done with him, and I've divorced him. I just feel like Steve wouldn't go on with him in this spot if he didn't think he could run anymore. So we'll see.
Yeah, but I mean, he could run, but just not be good enough, and that's where it's like he could be ready, but just not good enough, and that's where you just don't know. Because last year he looked like one of those horses that you're like, man, I can't wait to see this horse at 4. He's really going to move forward. The gun runners tend to do that. And for some reason, he just hasn't. But again, if he just snaps out of it and gets it. I think First Mission we didn't talk a ton about. He's the sort of weird wild card.
Yeah.
They said they're going to take back. That's a horse who I don't know. He
I've
always
loved this
leaves me
horse, Pete,
wanting.
but
Yeah, he
I-
always leaves me a little cold. So
well, I don't like the fact it's not like they're trying something different. I mean, 2 back in the Ali Shiva when we were there, he came from behind. That field was sort of mad and it was in the slop. I don't know what to make of it. I just don't like in this kind of race, Pete, where you're going to change tactics a little bit. It's just,
yeah,
I don't like that vibe at all. But if this horse wins, I will not be surprised. And I'm definitely using First Mission.
it's funny when I went into the race without really looking. I thought that's where I was going to land, and then once I was looking at the race in depth, I didn't, and then I sort of went the other way.
Michael's just saying that he won't be 20-1, but he still thinks the horse is interesting. Disarm. So, yeah. Let's get into our best bets, Pete, and then we'll wrap up the show. And we really appreciate everyone watching. We have hundreds of people watching on YouTube, on our X channel. But while we have a minute here, Pete, we do have some exciting things happening on the show. Of course, this Saturday morning and Sunday morning, Saratoga today, 10:45 Eastern. I will be hosting both days along with different co-hosts. Saturday we'll be talking about the early pick 5 on Whitney Day, and Sunday morning we'll talk about the late pick 5 the day after the Whitney. So please join us for those shows. And last thing I want to say before we get to our best bets and wrap up the show, this is very exciting, Pete. You don't know this.
Oh,
in fact,
beautiful.
only very few people know this, but I want to make a little bit of an exciting announcement between myself and Hawthorne. I got a call a few days ago from Dakota Schultz, who's the director of marketing from Hawthorne Racecourse. Our good friend Jim Miller, a week from Thursday, when Hawthorne has a live card, he needs to be downstate to cover some harness racing. Now I've been invited to be on their simulcast feed live the entire card at Hawthorne. So I will be live with Emily Gullickson for the entire card, the pre-race, within each race, etc., as the co-host on Hawthorne's live feed, talking about the Hawthorne card a week from today, Thursday, I'm going to mess up the date. What is it, the 8th, I believe?
Thursday is the 8th, yes.
Yes, August 8th. So
what time does
Hawthorne,
that start for everybody? What time does that kick off for everyone?
I believe it's 2:10 Central. So I believe it's 3:10 Eastern. We'll double check. But bet Hawthorne, and hopefully I won't make a fool of myself, and we'll find some winners I'll be right next to Emily Gullickson in the studio there. So thank you to Hawthorne. I was able to do that last year, and they've invited me back again. And so I'm very excited about that. Just wanted
so at least you know you didn't suck that bad since they told you to come back. So that's a good sign, right?
Yeah, that's always sign. They could have not invited me back, right, Pete?
That's what I mean. That's always a good sign, man.
Pete, let's talk about the best bets for you. You're going with Cugino in race 7 for a win bet, and you're going the Cogburn Arthur's Ride double starting race 10.
Yeah, and these aren't the strongest, but I like Cugino. I think that's just a horse that's on the come up a little bit, and I think could just be getting better. The thing I'm scared of is a little bit of pace problem there, where I don't know if he'll get the pace. If he's going to need to probably sit off. If he can let a horse go and sit off a bit, then I like it. But Irad is great at that, and he's going to be able to do it. So I like Cugino there. Hopefully that price floats up a little bit from the 3-1. And then, in the 10th, I figure if you're going to try and suck any value out of Cogburn, it's either going to be a cold exacta, which I do like a couple. We talked about Cogburn into Grooms All Business, or even who's the one? Mischief Magic. If Mischief Magic does stay at that sort of 6-1 somehow, and you can read the exacta board there, I think that's a good spot. But I'm going to take the shot with the double. Arthur's Ride, again, I'm going to just sort of ride that horse, and pun intended, and we'll see if we can sort of extract a little value out of Cogburn and hopefully get the Whitney home with back-to-back grays in the last 2 years. Let's see if that can happen.
Yeah, of course, boy. White Barrio with his coming up party last year, beating our Cody's Wish handily, running a complete hole in the wind in the Whitney, which I think was that only a 6-horse field, I think, last year?
It was short. I was very small.
Yeah.
It was around 6 or so. Patrick Kunzel, our buddy from Betting and Boozin', was on White Barrio last year, so hopefully one of us can bring another gray home. I had a big exacta Cody's over White Barrio, I remember, so I didn't I messed that up going. I didn't play him on the win end. So let's see if we can get the gray home this year.
Yeah, I don't think I had either one of those two. I can't remember who I had in that race, but I was way wrong in last year's Whitney.
I just didn't play him to win. I had, I think, the exactas both ways and didn't play him cold like a dummy. So
that can happen.
Yeah.
Here's my best bets. I'm going to go in race 7. I like Deterministic. I just think he's really interesting here, Pete. And I'm curious to see what he does. Deterministic and Disarm for me are like either I'm divorcing them after Saturday or I'm going to love them. It's one of those two things. They're not really keys to my pick 5 because Disarm I'm using more vertically for my bets, but Deterministic I am using horizontally more. So I'm just curious to see. I don't know. I want to see what he can do going longer on the turf. Christoph said that's what he wants to do. Who am I to question Christophe Clement? We'll see. And then race 11, I'm going to go a large exacta I'm going to Dutch it. So I'm not going to play exactly the same amounts. National Treasure and Bright Future over Disarm. I'm going to try to get Disarm in second, or I'm going to play some reverse key tries and get Disarm in there at like 12 to 1, whatever, 15 to 1, and get like a chalk splitter kind of situation, Pete, and try to extract value. I just think he has a chance to run a good race in what I anticipate will be a hot pace, but how many times we said, oh, it's $1 million race. I can't believe they let him walk around the track. It just feels like Arthur's Ride's got to be forward. Skippy has to be forward. Tumbarumba can't really take back from the outside. And so, I don't know. It just feels like there's going to be.
Well, it's nice when you have the speed. If you can beat the big favorite because they're going to be in a little bit of a compromised pace scenario. If you're looking for a long shot, obviously in the try, if you can beat the favorite, even if Disarm doesn't win, can get in the. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that play for sure.
And I'll play a little place and show underneath because if something really weird happens and Disarm pays 14 to place and 8 to show, and I have nothing to
you'll be pissed.
Show for it, right? Like if Tumbarumba wins and then Disarm gets second, and I have nothing, I'm gonna look like an idiot. So I will play a little bit place and even show, which I almost never do, but in this situation, I might. Pete, final thoughts?
Oh, I was gonna say, Katie asked. I didn't know if you looked at the Hall of Fame. Katie asked if you liked anybody in the Hall of Fame. I didn't look at it yet. Did you look at all?
I did look at it because I'm going to play that 2-day pick 5, and I know people can't see what I'm looking at, but let me go to that. The Hall of Fame on Friday, of course, we're filming here Thursday night, is race 9, and that is the race. Let's see. There's gonna be. I thought there was actually, it's wide open there. You got Neat, a horse we know.
I like that horse usually. Yeah.
I like Zverev a little bit for Cherie DeVaux, who just coming off a big effort at Churchill, who's 4 to 1. That's the number 3 horse. I do not like Laganos in general. And I think Army Officer, the 8 for Brad Cox, and Dettori, who's actually a little cold right now. It's a pretty wide open race, Pete. I got to look it over again. I don't have a strong opinion, but that pick 5 is going to be a lot of fun for people that like it. Chuck likes Zverev a little bit also. The number 3 in that race. Pete, final thoughts on Saturday. Hopefully the weather's going to cooperate. I mean, you never know. It cooperated for us when we were there, but now they got some rain this week. I'll ask you one question on the show. Is the Breeders' Cup Classic winner coming out of the Whitney?
Yes.
Oh.
If Arthur's Ride wins.
Whoa. Pete, you got to find that anti-post bet on
I know.
On Arthur's. I mean, Arthur's Ride's got to be 30 to 1 in the Breeders' Cup Classic betting right now, right? You would think?
It's a tough one because I agree with you. I don't know if I love National Treasure going a mile and a quarter. So if even if he wins this, I don't know if that's a precursor for a Breeders' Cup Classic win. So again, it's tough though, because I think we have to see the 3-year-olds progress. There's always a 3-year-old that sort of comes out of the woodwork second half potentially. And then unfortunately, like we saw with, say, Mindframe, where sadly a couple of them drop off the trail eventually. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that a horse out of this has a shot at least?
I think if National Treasure can win this race, either rating or on the lead, I think he has to be a strong, consideration.
I mean, honestly, who do you think's the best? Who do you think would be the top classic horse right now? I mean, in all honesty, we're talking about Forever Young and City of Troy as the horses people want to see in the classic. Yeah. That usually doesn't bode well for our contingent, unfortunately.
I mean, I'm looking at National Treasure. We've got a minute. I'm looking at National Treasure's PPs. I mean, his best number, if you're a buyer guy, is a 107, but that was in the dirt and mile. His best fig going a distance is the 105 he ran at the Pegasus. But I mean, didn't the 3-year-olds are running 103, low 100s. It's not like, I think the Jim Dandy, Dornock got a 103 and Sierra got a 102. And you'd think, at least for Sierra and maybe Dornock, they might want to go longer. I mean, we've been poo-pooing these 3-year-olds all along, but it's not like the handicap horses are anything special either. So
that's the thing.
I got to be honest. I think Forever Young is the horse to beat in the Classic right now. I really do. I think if he progresses from the Derby, him or Dermasotogake in a fairly run race, I don't know. Those might be the two best. It's shaping up to
be a fun one, though, because it's going to it looks wide open if we can get everyone there. I agree with you. It's one of those where the thing is, some of the 3-year-olds, like if Dornock keeps progressing, that's speed. So a horse like Parenting, I think they said was going to the Pacific Classic,
and Muth might be coming back. There's in a weird. I just don't think the horse that's going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic has been running here in the United States over the last 4 or 5 months. I
saw Nisos and who's the other one? Nisos and Maimon they're ramping back up for whatever that means. So Nisos is funny because Nisos looked like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we'll see if we can get him back. So it'd be fun. I mean, for us as fans, we want as many good ones in there as possible, and you want speed, and you want closers, you want a little bit of everything, and you want prices to close the day out. So I hope they all get there, and I hope it's a great race. But I hope Arthur's Ride stamps his first path on the road to the Breeders' Cup this week, on Saturday.
He's got a shot. I just hope they send Pete. Don't let National Treasure walk. I mean, come on. I mean, take your shot. It's a grade $1 million race. I'd rather. I'll end with this. I'd rather have Arthur's Ride, whether people at home like him or not, just gun and go for it and make it a race, as opposed to be happy finishing in second by 5 or third. I mean, if you're in the race, you got to be in it to win it, right? And I just think the best way they have to win it is to send hard and put National Treasure, in a stalking position and see what you got. I mean, that's the only way I think he can win. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Pete, really appreciate it. Good to see you again, my friend. I'm glad to be back together. And we've got are you joining us on? You're not going to be on this in the morning shows for us. So
Saturday. No,
Saturday. Saturday. You are.
Schedule. Yes.
Saturday we'll be back. You and I will be back to discuss the early pick 5 as well. For my good friend Pete Visco, this has been your and Andrew Champagne as well. This has been your host, Howard Kravitz. Episode 365, a full year of Picks and Ponies shows. We're gonna have another full year and make it quick math. 730 next time before we know it, for 2 years full of Picks and Ponies. Good luck, everyone, this week at Saratoga and everyone else. Crush your bets on Whitney Day. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.